This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
AI is making sales bad, right? It's getting all these just lazy, cold outreach emails and with personalization that is seemingly not even there, right? Isn't AI supposed to help us create better connections with humans and to really display value at the right time? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today on Everyday AI, about how AI can actually help make your sales team more relevant at the right time for more personalized sales. I'm excited to be talking about this because I think even though it is through the lens of sales, I think today's show is going to be especially helpful, really just for anyone, on the best way to use AI to just create better human connections and better relevancy. All right, so before we get started, just as a reminder, if you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate it as always. Make sure to check out your show notes. And most importantly, go to youreverydayai.com because we recap every single episode. I already know there's going to be a ton of great insights from our expert guest today. So make sure that you read the newsletter and go to youreverydayai.com. All right, before we get started, let's do as we always do and go over what's happening in the AI news. So Meta just announced a new model called Meta 3D Gen. So Meta, formerly known as Facebook, has unveiled a groundbreaking AI system called Meta 3D Gen, which can rapidly generate high-quality 3D assets from text descriptions in under a minute. So Meta 3D Gen combines Meta 3D Asset Gen for creating 3D meshes and Meta 3D Texture Gen for creating textures, resulting in assets with high-resolution textures physically based on rendering materials. So the system offers 3D asset creation with high fidelity and quality in less than a minute, potentially transforming industries like video game development, architecture, so many other things. So the texture gen can create high quality textures for complex 3D objects in 20 seconds and then upscale the textures to 4K. Like some of these early, text to 3D was not even like HD quality. And now we're getting 4K. Wild. All right. Speaking of wild, well, here's some wild news. Apple is set to have acquired a seat on OpenAI's board. So according to a Bloomberg report, Apple is set to acquire an observer role on OpenAI's board, marking a pretty significant development in the AI industry among all these tech titans. So Phil Schiller, Apple's head of the App Store and former marketing chief, has been selected for this position, which will come into effect later this year. So observers like Schiller can attend board meetings, but do not possess voting rights or other directional powers, providing insights into decision-making processes within the companies. So Apple's integration of OpenAI's ChatGPT onto its upcoming devices and the integration of Apple intelligence technology across its suite, including Siri, precedes this board arrangement. So obviously a pretty huge partnership that Apple announced last month at WWDC with OpenAI. And, we actually talked about it. It's like, hey, Apple's actually not paying OpenAI, but even more so now, they're getting a seat on the board. And so great negotiation there from out of Cupertino. All right, last but not least, Google is introducing new AI features for Pixel phones. So Google is set to launch new AI features for Pixel phones, including a Pixel screenshot feature that can process details from manually taken screenshots, allowing for easier searchability. So the Pixel screenshots AI feature will enable users to save and process helpful information from their screenshots, making it convenient to search through them. I was literally thinking about this like 2 days ago. So this is kind of similar to Microsoft's Recall tool, except Google's version will only process manually taken screenshots addressing privacy concerns. And obviously, Microsoft had to temporarily delay its Recall feature due to privacy concerns because it essentially just kind of monitored everything going on at all times in the background. But Microsoft is expected to roll it out soon. All right, so there's going to be a lot more in our newsletter. So make sure you go to youreverydayai.com and sign up for that free daily newsletter. All right, but you didn't come here to hear about all the AI news. You probably came here to hear or to talk about how you can use AI just to go from this, impersonal, cold process to something that's actually very personal. So I'm excited to bring on our guest for today. There we go. We have him, Manny Medina, who is the CEO and co-founder of Outreach. Manny, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show.
No, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
All right. Hey, I'm excited for this one. And, special shout out to our friends on the West Coast joining us at 5:30 a.m. local time. So shout out Manny. But hey, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your role there at Outreach?
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO, and we do what CEOs do. Everything from fundraising to make sure that there's food in the office.
Yeah. And, Outreach is one of the, bigger tools, in this industry, but, maybe many for those that aren't, too familiar with Outreach with the company. Can you give us a little bit of insights on what it is that you do and how you also can allow for, more personalized sales experiences?
Yeah, so I think it's easier to start with our mission. So, we're here to ensure that every sales rep and every manager is unlocking their fullest potential. So the way to think about us is that we are the R&D department. We are the engineering department for every rep and every manager and every sales organization to make sure that we're building tools for them, that we're taking whatever is at the edge of technology and we're bringing it in the form of something that accrues and it's useful to the day-to-day job. So what Outreach actually now is a revenue execution platform. So it empowers reps to execute the entire revenue function, from building pipeline and prospecting to manage deals and ensure that the deals are closing at a higher rate, to forecasting, to making sure that you retain that account, that you expand that account, that you cross-sell that account, and then layering, managing, and observability throughout the process to ensure that every rep is doing that. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, these workflows have changed dramatically with AI, and in a very positive way. So this is the part where it gets really interesting for reps, because there is a lot of talk of reps being displaced by AI, but in reality, reps are being aided by AI. The displacement happened during, the economic contraction when there was a lot of people who were laid off. But in reality, for the day-to-day action of the rep, AI is supercharging their work in the form of, more relevancy and the ability to complete tasks in a short period of time. So there's all this activity that is happening in AI that is actually helping the rep.
Speaking of relevancy, I want to pick on this because, cold outreach and, using different sales platforms to better nurture lead and, using company intelligence and all of these things, it's been around for a very long time, but I've even noticed a huge uptake over the last 3 years since the kind of surgence of large language models, with so many more pieces of cold outreach. And Manny, I feel it's getting lazy. I feel that AI, generative AI, large language models have so much potential to help people just, create more relevant and actually real relationships by using AI. But it always seems it comes off sometimes as lazy personalization. And, AI is just being used to slap a placeholder, on an outreach, email or, LinkedIn message or something like that. Is this something that you've seen? Like, is AI actually making some people a little bit lazier when it comes to sales?
No. So let's pick that apart. So first of all, this striving towards personalization has been around for a very long time, whether it's you doing your own research or now AI doing your own research to try to be personalized, quote unquote. But I fundamentally believe that personalization is BS. Personalization is nonsensical most of the time. Why? And the reason why is that you don't care about a personalized email. You care about a relevant email to the moment of to the moment in time in which you're having a problem. At the end of the day, sales is not so much about building relationship, but using that relationship to solve a problem. And in the context of solving the problem, you're going to drive a transaction. So if I send you an email saying, hey, we are both from the Midwest, or hey, we're both into AI, that's going to be incredibly relevant to you. But if I send you an email about the industry that you're in and saying, hey, you may have missed this piece of news that just came out yesterday, that is incredibly relevant. And relevancy is way harder because relevant has a shelf life that is a lot shorter than personalization. If you were born in the Midwest, that is true forever. Whereas if I send you a piece of news that is relevant for this week, that is true right now. And the second is way harder. So now, because it's harder to do, it takes a lot more time. And what AI is doing and LLM is doing, and when you combine LLMs with search engines, it allows you to create all these sort of like micro agents that are going out into the web and finding relevant piece of information that can be relevant to you, and then allow you to experiment, right? Because an LLM can create 5 versions of a piece of communication, all of them including some different relevant fact, and one of them is going to hit. You see what I mean? So the ability for a rep to wrap their mind around how do they initiate a relationship is now supercharged with AI. Now it can be used for ill, and it can be used stupidly, just like everything else. But the potential to truly unlock relevant conversation right from the beginning is mind-blowingly high.
Let's unpack that a little bit, right? The example, Manny, that you talked about there, which I think can really, if someone's in sales, or maybe if you're a CEO and, sales is always on your mind, and how can our sales team be more relevant? I think you just gave great examples there on, how can you use large language models to provide value and to maybe help them solve problems, or to even, like align yourself and say, hey, I saw this big piece of news that probably, impacts you.
Right.
How should, sales leaders be looking at AI technologies to do that? Because it seems like kind of a tall task, right? Like, oh, my prospect is probably facing dozens of problems. So,
Right.
how can people start to unravel that process? Because what you just described there, I'm like, that's amazing. I wish I got 10
Right.
messages like that a day, but probably easier said than done.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So sales leaders need to start leading the way of AI by using it themselves. So, there is almost zero place to hide from a email or a meeting summarization tool. Whether you use Zoom directly or you use whatever, anything from Copilot, there's the ability for you to summarize what's going on in a series of conversations is very high right now. It's almost ubiquitous. Yet most people still don't use it. So the first instantiation of AI relevance is your own use. So use it for your own, figure out every task that you do in your day. Like, sit down for 30 minutes and figure out what is it you do throughout the day, and figure out in which ones are you going to insert AI as a assistant. You know what I mean? Whereas human-led, AI assisted, and let that play and see what's the impact of your work. Instead of writing your own emails, have AI, write it for you. Instead of asking a rep what's going on a deal, inquire, the deal for you. Like, you use a tool like Outreach, or use, something like Copilot that allows you to summarize stuff. So that's number one. Number two is that, you can make it fun. You see what I mean? Like, you can make it, if you have, AI is still down to the prompting. So if a rep can use good prompting to drive a good, say, communication, whether that's email or a text, or something that you use in a meeting, and that gets a response that is funny, or that gets a response that is engaging, just show it to everybody. See, you can say, look at this email, or look at what this rep said that was AI driven during a conversation, and show it to everybody, and see, like, and show that how funny it was, or how relevant it was, or how impactful it was, and drive the awareness by showing other people how to do it. This is the fastest path of adoption for AI right now is daily single use, not corporate use. Matter of fact, corporations are trying to block AI access because they don't know the implications in privacy and usage of their own data. But the individual use is going to be way more powerful than anything that is mandated by any company or by any manager.
Manny, you just tapped into what I still think is one of the most helpful uses of generative AI. And I think you pointed out almost this juxtaposition, right? Like, we all have access to these tools, right? So whether you're using Microsoft Teams, or you're using Copilot, or I'm sure there's people out there that use Google Meet as an example, right? Like,
Right.
we spend so much of our time.
And it's everywhere. Like, when you pop out a Google Doc, the first thing you see is the Gemini thing right on top to say, use me. So use it. You see what I mean? Like, write a document by prompting first. And so this is a mental change that we need to have, is that instead of, our default is to start right away. And our default should be to prompt right away. And then use the prompting as a way to drive, better communication. as opposed to using, beating yourself against the wall and saying, I could have done this better, or let me do this task in like 2 minutes. Use the same 2 minutes to prompt better, and that will get you there.
Yeah, because I think, and I see this all the time, right? We work with companies, we consult them, and it seems like there's so much value with face-to-face communication, right? Especially obviously when you talk about sales, right? So you're on a meeting, you're talking with a prospect. It's an ongoing process, it's not just one call. It's ongoing. How
Right.
can both salespeople, Manny, and others use the transcripts of those conversations, use the recording of those conversations, right? Because I think sometimes people think, well, if there's not an immediate action, or if there's not an immediate sale, then that transcript maybe doesn't hold a ton of value. What would your recommendation be? Because yes, so many of us spend hours a day sometimes in meetings, and I think there's so much value that happens there, even if it's not that one meeting that leads to the sale. What should business leaders be doing when it comes to just looking at their meetings a little differently with generative AI?
Yeah. So every sales organization that we work with has a mandate to do something different. Whether it's to sell a new product, whether it's to drive an expansion in areas where they weren't, whether it's to go up market, whether it's to lower the cost of sales. And you can find instances of that initiative everywhere in every single conversation. So, as we were talking right before we got online, when you launch a new product, you have the idea of the product, you have a bunch of feedback from early customers, you have the positioning, the pricing, and the packaging, and then you release it to the wild. But whatever you came up with internally is relevant. Like all the information that is relevant to you is on those interactions. Like, how did they land? Was it easy to sell? Was it easy to position? Did it roll off the tongue? Was it easy to put in the middle of conversation? Can the customer imagine themselves using it? Did the rep even ask that question? Or did they try just to say, hey, you should buy this because it's cheap and it's included in your offering? So all those points of feedback, are out there in the wild, in the relationship and the interaction. And managers and leaders just need to get really good at using AI as an inspection mechanism to get that feedback into the company fast and into the reps fast. There's whenever you launch something new and you educate your reps on your new application, only about 10% of the reps will say what you told them to go say. Everybody else will not say it, make up their own mind, say their own things, etc. And there's value in both of them. For one reason, the 10% that will say it becomes the group that you're actually testing against. And then there's another 10% who are going to remember some of the training and they're going to say it in their own words. So now you have an A/B test, right? You have two ways of positioning the same, artifact out in the market, and now you can get real feedback as to what the customer is saying. So the AI use of the summarization is incredibly powerful and incredibly underused right now to get faster information back into the company to react to what you're trying to get done.
And obviously, and we'll have this out in our newsletter today, Outreach has a lot of, AI capabilities in its platform. But, I'm wondering, even for you all internally, Manny, maybe before you rolled all these out in your platform, how was your own team using generative AI, right? Like I love taking findings from successful companies that have already implemented it to their products. But I like asking, okay, well, before you put it into your product, how were you actually using this, and how did you find the value? So maybe can you tell us a little bit even how you all were internally finding value in generative AI?
Yeah, that's almost our secret sauce, right? Is that we sell to salespeople and we test in our own salespeople before we sell to salespeople. So, when there's ubiquity around email composers, right? There is a ton of almost every email client comes up with a AI email composer. Where it gets better is on the follow-up. So when you start a conversation, you respond to my email with, yeah, let's go, or with an objection. And it's in that objection handling where the majority of transactions get done. So there is this fact in sales that a positive reply has lower conversion than an objection that is turned around. And how do you turn around that objection is where the AI really shines, right? Because it could be a timing objection, it could be a person objection, it could be a pricing objection, a competitor objection. And the AI is really good at taking all the facts you have internally and the latest information that you have accumulated as a company and use it in that follow-up, right? In that back and forth. So the AI is now at the point in which it can by itself through email communication, get you a meeting, get you the first meeting. That is much faster actually than a human using it. So we're using it already internally exactly for that. And then from a management perspective, AI began with summarizing the meeting. You had a meeting, you transcribed the meeting, and then it summarizes it for you. But as both the context window got larger and the ability to daisy chain, models, became available, now we can not just summarize the meeting, but summarize the relationship with the account. So in the last 5 meetings, what happened, right? And then allows me to then summarize what is going on in the account altogether. So in the last 2 years, what have we done with this account? Where has this account gone? Where's our white space and what's our opportunity size within this account? And mind you, I mean, you're in the business of AI news. This thing is changing like every other week. Like every other week, there's a release of something new that has, is cheaper, faster, more tokens, more, whatever. And staying on top of this allows us to then make the AI more powerful for the use of the agent or the use of the rep, the manager.
Mm. You know, Manny, I'm thinking as, you had a great example because, I feel like a year ago you had to go seek out the help of AI or large language models, and not anymore, right? Like we talked about, if you're in, your Gmail and, you have Gemini features enabled, it's going to give you suggested replies, right, to an email that, hopefully are going to become more relevant, right? That's what a big thing we're talking about, a lean into relevancy and maybe away from personalization. But how, as we look at, not future proofing against smarter, AI, but, how can we as humans, as these AI systems like Outreach, like your, Microsoft Copilot, like Google Gemini, and across its products, they're all getting smarter, right? So how can we as humans think in the future of ways that we can better use artificial intelligence to not stay relevant, right? I'm not talking about that, but to perform our jobs better, right? As these tools become more powerful, I feel a struggle, even myself personally, is how can we take advantage of all of this to get more sales, to create more relevancy? How should we be looking at that?
So that's a really broad question. So let me narrow it down to just sales. In sales, your calling card is your number. Are you delivering the results that you were hired to deliver, or are you not? And I guess I can extrapolate that to everybody else. Like, start with the goal in mind. What is your end? AI is just a means to an end, and AI should help you get to that end faster and more efficiently. There's a little secret in sales that if you were to look at the top 20% of the reps that deliver 80% of the numbers, they're not working any harder. You see what I mean? They're not like, above, the amount of hours work that a rep that is not performing. They're just very efficient and they're very methodical and they're very clear about what is what they want to do. Matter of fact, the majority of those reps are very clear about their work-life, interaction or balance. So they want to get as much work done in the period in which they allow themselves, with the goal of making the most amount of money in that amount of time. You see what I mean? So how do you prove, how do you future-proof yourself as a rep? Is continue to deliver the number faster. You see what I mean? So if you're constantly beating your number, there's no AI replacement for you, because for the next 5 years, a manager will always be leery of shaking the tree that is actually delivering the goods. You see what I mean? So just be a good rep. You know what I mean? Like, go make a lot of money, go be selfish with your time, with the amount of money that you're bringing to yourself and to your organization, and use AI to do that faster so that you can go home earlier.
Are you still running in circles trying to figure out how to actually grow your business with AI? Maybe your company has been tinkering with large language models for a year or more, but can't really get traction to find ROI on Gen AI. Hey, this is Jordan Wilson, host of this very podcast. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and NVIDIA have partnered with us because they trust our expertise in educating the masses around generative AI to get ahead. And some of the most innovative companies in the country hire us to help with their AI strategy and to train hundreds of their employees on how to use Gen AI. So whether you're looking for ChatGPT training for thousands or just need help building your front-end AI strategy, you can partner with us too. just like some of the biggest companies in the world do. Go to youreverydayai.com/partner to get in contact with our team, or you can just click on the partner section of our website. We'll help you stop running in those AI circles and help get your team ahead and build a straight path to ROI on Gen AI.
That's a good point, right? Yeah, it's something I'm always thinking about, right? Like even right now, this conversation, we're going to use AI to summarize it, and we have pre-built prompts that are always going to run from these conversations. And I always think, how can I better use that? How can I better leverage that? How can I help more people and create more relevancy with this? But actually, a great question. A great question here, Manny, from Woozy. So, for our live stream audience, if you have any questions, please get them in now before we wrap this up. So Woozy asking, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one there from Woozy. That was just a funny one saying, all these pitches that people get all the time. But asking you, Manny, what do you think the sales outreach process looks like a year from now or 3 years from now? I can't imagine, but I'm sure it's something you're thinking about all the time with advancements in AI. But what does that look like specifically with AI?
So once we get good at it, what you're going to see is this increase in relevancy over the next maybe 2 years. It's not, we're only seeing about 20% of the reps really using AI, to drive their day-to-day work. And they're still using AI for personalization, which I made the argument is the wrong use. So instead of saying writing a personalized email, the human should be thinking about what would that person care about right now, and then ask the AI to go do that. What will happen in the next 3 years is that agents will recognize what drives the outcome that you're looking for. So if the outcome that you're looking for is outreach and engagement from that outreach, the agent will know that the best engagement happens from relevant news, relevant information about you, and will go look for that and give you that answer, as opposed to you having to prompt the LLM to go do it yourself. And that's when it really gets good, is that because agent technology and the ability for you to strings and parallelize these LLMs allows you to test really quickly, what's working, what's not. What you will see in the next year is that this will be packaged together in such a way that will deploy to the point of the rep, and the rep will know that the LLM, that the AI is giving them relevant information right now. So, for instance, the email that an LLM will generate right now may not be useful next week.
Mm-hmm.
That relevant. You see what I mean? And the second thing is that the LLM will know that relevance is not so much about, giving you a piece of news or something that is related to you. The LLM will recognize that humans react really well to something that they were not expecting. That is actually the juiciest cuts of any piece of personalized email. It's when you get a piece of email that you read and be like, oh, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. That's what engages the most. You know what I mean? So like this kind of psychological facts will be learned by the LLM and fully be deployed, at the point of the email, and you will start getting emails that are a joy to read. In 3 years, my hope is that your inbox is full of useful information, as opposed to the crap that you see right now.
Oh, I can't wait for that, right? Yeah. Like, someone please sell me something that what Manny is talking about, right? Like solving my problems today and to give me highly relevant information and value that maybe I didn't expect.
Exactly. Like nobody sits down to write an email or to write a piece of communication. Like, I really wish that this is going to be super annoying. Like nobody does that. So the human tendency is to actually do well, right? But it's being so hard to do. It's so complex. And the AI has a true opportunity to actually really deliver against what, we all as humans want to do.
I'm wondering, Manny, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are hearing today's conversation and who are hearing what you're saying, and they're like, oh, yes, this is amazing. I'm going to do this right away, right? I'm going to implement exactly what he's saying into my process. What are potential downsides, right? Aside from just not doing it well, and aside from like what we talked about, like, oh, AI and it does not mean, personalization is going to lead to sales, because, putting my name in a placeholder or my title in a placeholder does nothing. But maybe what are some downsides or potential obstacles that people need to keep in mind, especially when, deploying this to large sales teams?
So there is a number of things. So one of them is the fact that Ken Griffin just came out and talked about how, you know, he doesn't see AI replacing humans in his business, right? Because at the end of the day, just like sales, he needs to deliver, return to his shareholders, right? He runs a bunch of hedge funds, and you can just trust an AI to actually deliver the return. And at the end of that's his job. The job of a rep, of a manager, of a sales leader is to deliver, a number, is to deliver, growth to the company. So we are not at a point where we can just, trust the AI to completely run your sales process for a number of reasons. One, it's not there yet. B, the hallucinations are a real problem, in that you can ask an LLM to go and find me some piece of news that is relevant and surprising at the same time, because that's the most engaging thing, but it may come back with a lie. And if you get caught lying because of the LLM prompt that you're wrong, that is just really bad. Now you are that guy who's spreading new things that are not true. So you have to be careful for those kinds of things. And truly, there's no real solve for that, because where we are right now in AI, we don't really truly understand why LLMs work. So whenever he hallucinates, we have no idea what he's hallucinating. So you have to be super careful in that there needs to be a human in the loop. So this copilot mode is going to be around for a long time, unless you create, a parallel LLM that sort of checks on the validity of the facts of the first LLM. There's going to be some human involvement to ensure that 100% of communication is true and factual.
So much great value here. Y'all, when I'm on these calls, I'm always jotting down main points, and usually at the end of a conversation, I have a good 5 or 7 of them. I have 16. So Manny, we've talked about so much in today's conversation. From how AI can help enhance but not replace sales reps, talking about relevancy over personalization in sales, and also how you can best optimize your sales strategy with AI and avoid those hallucinations. But as we wrap up, maybe what is the one most important piece of advice that you have for people, to go from using AI from these cold, impersonal pitches to actually personalized sales in relevant relationships? What's that one takeaway?
It's to really embrace the technology. The technology truly will make you better. Look, I transact, hundreds of millions of communication pieces a day through the average platform. You see emails and text and phone calls, etc. And there is so much opportunity for people to be more relevant. There is so much opportunity for people to really embrace that dynamic of using the AI to be relevant at the point of your customer. And we're only going to get there by using it, by trying it, by failing sometimes, by really getting into it. So what I was before we got started, we talked about how humans still have this tendency, because it's really hard to break out of a habit, to jump in an email and start writing, or jump in a document and start writing. And we should switch that. We should actually reward ourselves with a cookie or a chocolate or something, to jump in a document or an email or even a meeting agenda and start prompting. Prompt before you write. Prompt before you write. Let the AI do the work, and then get really good, and then use that time to think about what would the customer want, what would that person care about, and then really exercise this empathetic muscle that is so hard to copy in software, which is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. That is the most human thing that we can do, and the hardest, by the way.
Yeah,
so let's do that all the time.
I love that. Such great advice, right? I tell people that all the time, is sometimes to get the most out of AI, you have to unlearn good habits. You have to absolutely change how you work. And Manny, I love that. Don't just jump in there and start writing, start prompting, prompt before you work, and let AI do some of that work. That's amazing advice, and an amazing conversation today as well. Manny, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show. We really appreciate your time and your insights.
Absolutely. No, it was a pleasure. It was fun.
All right. And hey, as a reminder, a ton of value in today's show. I'm going to have to do exactly what Manny said. I'm going to have to, before I go write the newsletter, I got to prompt this, because there was so much value, but we're going to be breaking it down in today's newsletter. So please go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for that free daily newsletter, or check out the show notes. Also, if this was helpful, if you're listening on the podcast, please leave us a rating. If you're listening here online, tag someone that needs to hear this, tag someone on your sales team, share this with them. We appreciate you tuning in. We will be off tomorrow because of the holiday, but we'll be back Friday and every day after that with more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.